So if you're wanting to join columns at different sizes together, you probably are better off using the join family, like those left join, right join, inner join. There's also things like anti-join and semi-join, which are quite interesting to and might be useful in some contexts. Combining rows that exist in both tables and dropping duplicates is what we're about to do, I think. So we're going to rename breaches to admissions to create some duplicates in our data. So data frame 1 is organization code, and it says admissions, but it was actually the breaches. And data frame 2 is organization code and admissions. And union puts them together. Okay, I'm just going to my dplyr cheat sheet to remind myself what union does. Yeah, rows that appear in either or both of the data frames. Whereas intersect brings back the ones, intersect is the ones that appear in both of the data frames, and set diff are the ones that appear in one of them, but not the other. So these are just ways of sort of partitioning space. It's kind of like it's like Venn diagrams. So this first one, if you've got a circle for A and a circle for B, you're bringing back everything in all of them. The intersect would be where your circles overlap, and your set diff would be the other one. Yeah, it would be the bit in A that doesn't include the overlap. Right, so this next bit is about grouping.
So maybe just check if anybody has any questions, or maybe if the pace is too fast, maybe it's a good time to say we should slow down a bit. So is everyone all right with the pace, or if there's any questions?
So how are you dropping the duplicates using these? Is it the intersect that removes the duplicates between the two?
Yeah. So the intersection. So we have this data frame here, and we've got another one, and the intersection brings the rows that appear in both Y and Z. So duplicates union, we've got this, and then intersect. Now I have to figure out what's right. I think it's set diff that's dropping the duplicates, because it's both of them. It depends which part is the duplicate. So the union is bringing back everything, so that'll have all the duplicates. So that's your in the Venn diagram is your A, B, and the intersection. The intersection is just the duplicate part, the bits that overlap, and the set diff is just the ones in A that do not exist in the overlap. So that's how it's dropping the duplicates from A's perspective. If you wanted to do it the other way, if you wanted B and not an A, you would swap these around.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. So this next bit is about grouping data, and it depends when you've learned R, but you might have seen to sort of if you wanted to count the number of rows by type, you might have done something like group by, summarize, and ungroup. There is now a new way of doing that in one line, and it's this dot by argument to the summarize function. So these two lines of code do exactly the same thing. So we are grouping by type, we are counting the number of rows. So here we've got in type 1, there are 4,900. And in the new way, we've got 4,900. So it's doing exactly the same thing, but we've got it in one line instead of three. So you could do this you could do it like that and get the same thing, but the ungroup is there because when you're doing other things later on, if you don't ungroup, it will still be grouped together. But this dot by sort of gets around that. So this dot by, you don't need to ungroup. It sort of does these three lines in one. In some cases, you may still want to use this group by, do your thing, and then ungroup, because you could put multiple lines in here. Whereas in here, it just applies the grouping to that one line only. I hope that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it'll depend on when you've learned R. This dot by has been around, I think, maybe a year or two now. So if you're new to R, you might never have seen this group by ungroup structure. And this applies to summarize and mutate, and I think also filter as well. And yeah, it drops the groups by default, so there's no need to do the ungroup if you're using this dot by within the function. So counting, so earlier on we were using table to sort of get a count of the data. The dplyr equivalent is to use count. And that's quite useful because if you're doing a big pipe of stuff, so say you did your data and then you wanted to filter, you wanted to order, you wanted to rename, arrange, and then you could end it with this count. Looks like that, which is the same as I can't remember which is the same as this, but in a slightly different format. And it could also be the same. So yeah, within dplyr, you can use a function called count, or you can use the function summarize and say, ask for a count by using this n with the brackets. The summarize is quite useful if you want to ask for other things as well. So say you wanted the max attendances. Then you've got both things in there. What am I looking at? Data count. So I've got the count and I've got the maximum attendances. But this, so you can do that with the summarize, and that's why you might want to use the n bracket. But if you just want to count and you don't want anything else, you can use this count function instead. There's also a function to add a column like mutate with a count by that feature. So here we're adding the number of organization codes. So if I now look at data count, I've got for RF4, there are 108 observations for RF4. There are 108 RF4s in this column. And same for RH1, but there are only 36 RYXs. And that's the same as mutating count equals n. So looking at filtering our data set, this is filtering for organization codes that contain a capital R anywhere in their name. So if I have a look at data filter, it's brought back all these ones that have an R in it. This one here filters data to the latest date period per organization code. So this is where we can use the dot by in the filter here. So we're saying filter for when the date is the maximum date for that organization code. So now we'll only have one observation per organization code, but the dates will be the maximum. Within the filter, you could put multiple conditions. So you can do filter for when the type is 1 and the attendances are greater than 10,000. Or you could do OR conditions. So OR is this pipe symbol, that's the next to your Z on the keyboard. So this is filter where type is 1 or attendances of 10,000. So if we look at the and one first, this brings back 1,600